morning. Thank you for joining me today. Yeah, really appreciate how faithful you guys have been in getting up and reading the Bible with me every day. It's cool. Okay, let's do Leviticus chapter 11, verse 1 through chapter 12, verse 8. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying to them, "Tell the Israelites, this is the kind of creature you may eat from among all the animals that are on the land. You may eat any among the animals that has a divided hoof. The hooves are completely split in two, and that also chews the cud. However, you must not eat these from among those that chew the cud and have divided hooves. The camel is unclean to you because it chews the cud, even though its hoof is not divided. The rock badger is unclean to you because it chews the cud, even though its hoof is not divided. The hare is unclean to you because it chews the cud, even though its hoof is not divided. The pig is unclean to you because its hoof is divided, the hoof is completely split in two, even though it does not chew the cud. You must not eat from their meat, and you must not touch their carcasses. They are unclean to you. These you can eat from all creatures that are in the water. Any creatures in the water that have both fins and scales, whether in the seas or in the streams, you may eat. But any creatures that do not have both fins and scales, whether in the seas or in the streams, from all the swarming things of the water and from all the living creatures that are in the water, are detestable to you. Since they are detestable to you, you must not eat their meat, and their carcass you must detest. Any creature in the water that does not have both fins and scales is detestable to you. These you are to detest from among the birds. They must not be eaten, because they are detestable: the griffin vulture, the bearded vulture, the black vulture, the kite, the buzzard of any kind, every kind of crow, the eagle owl, the short-eared owl, the long-eared owl, the hawk of any kind, the little owl, the cormorant, the screech owl, the white owl, the scops owl, the osprey, the stork, the heron of any kind, the hoopoe, and the bat. Every winged swarming thing that walks on all fours is detestable to you. However, this you may eat from all the winged swarming things that walk on all fours, which have jointed legs to hop with on the land. These you may eat from them: the locust of any kind, the bald locust of any kind, the cricket of any kind, the grasshopper of any kind. But any other winged swarming thing that has 4 legs is detestable to you. By these you defile yourselves. Anyone who touches their carcass will be unclean until the evening, and anyone who carries their carcass must wash his clothes and will be unclean until the evening. All animals that divide the hoof, but it is not completely split in two, and do not chew the cud, are unclean to you. Anyone who touches them becomes unclean. All that walk on their paws among all the creatures that walk on all fours are unclean to you. Anyone who touches their carcass will be unclean until the evening. And the one who carries their carcass must wash his clothes and be unclean until the evening. They are unclean to you. Now this is what is unclean to you among the swarming things that swarm on the land: the rat, the mouse, the large lizard of any kind, the Mediterranean gecko, the spotted lizard, the wall gecko, the skink, and the chameleon. These are the ones that are unclean to you among all the swarming things. Anyone who touches them when they die will be unclean until evening. Also, anything they fall on when they die will become unclean: any wood vessel or garment or article of leather or sackcloth. Any such vessel with which work is done must be immersed in water and will be unclean until the evening. Then it will become clean. As for any clay vessel they fall into, everything in it will become unclean, and you must break it. Any food that may be eaten, which becomes soaked with water, will become unclean. Anything drinkable in any such vessel will become unclean. Anything their carcass may fall on will become unclean. An oven or small stove must be smashed to pieces. They are unclean, and they will stay unclean to you. However, a spring or a cistern which collects water will be clean, but one who touches their carcass will be unclean. Now if such a carcass falls on any sowing seed which is to be sown, it is clean. But if water is put on the seed, and such a carcass falls on it, it is unclean to you. Now if an animal that you may eat dies, whoever touches its carcass will be unclean until the evening. One who eats from its carcass must wash his clothes and be unclean until the evening, and whoever carries its carcass must wash his clothes and be unclean until the evening. Every swarming thing that swarms on the land is detestable. It must not be eaten. You must not eat anything that crawls on its belly, or anything that walks on all fours, or on any number of legs, of all the swarming things that swarm on the land, because they are detestable. Do not make yourselves detestable by any of the swarming things. You must not defile yourselves by them, and become unclean by them. For I am the Lord your God, and you are to sanctify yourselves, and be holy, because I am holy. You must not defile yourselves by any of the swarming things that creep on the ground. For I am the Lord, who brought you up from the land of Egypt, to be your God, and you are to be holy, because I am holy. This is the law of the land. This is the law of the land animals, the birds, all the living creatures that move in the water, and all the creatures that swarm on the land, to distinguish between the unclean and the clean, between the living creatures that may be eaten, and the living creatures that must not be eaten. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Tell the Israelites, when a woman produces offspring and bears a male child, she will be unclean 7 days, and she is unclean during the days of her menstruation. On the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin must be circumcised. Then she will remain 33 days in blood purity. She must not touch anything holy, and she must not enter the sanctuary until the days of her purification are fulfilled. If she bears a female child, she will be impure 14 days, as during her menstrual flow, and she will remain 66 days in blood purity. When the days of her purification are completed, for a son or for a daughter, she must bring a 1-year-old lamb for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or turtle dove for a sin offering to the entrance of the meeting tent to the priest. The priest is to present it before the Lord and make atonement on her behalf, and she will be clean from her flow of blood. This is the law of the one who bears a child, for the male or the female child. If she cannot afford a sheep, then she must take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one for a burnt offering and one for a sin offering, and the priest is to make atonement on her behalf, and she will be clean." Okay. Oh gosh, that's a disgusting point, but I suppose I'll make it anyway. In Islam, they make this big deal of women and their menstrual impurity. That Muhammad in particular made a big deal about women and their menstrual impurity, that they were deficient in religion because they couldn't participate in prayer when going through menstruation. And it claims to be Abrahamic religion, but I guess he didn't get to the point about male emissions also making one unclean as well. We just have the female emissions being highlighted. Sorry about that. I know it's early in the morning. Let's distance ourselves from that. Mark 5, 21 through 43. When Jesus had crossed again in a boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and he was by the sea. Then one of the synagogue rulers, named Jairus, came up, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He asked him urgently, "My little daughter is near death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be healed and live." Jesus went with him, and a large crowd followed and pressed around him. Now a woman was there who had been suffering from a hemorrhage for 12 years. She had endured a great deal under the care of many doctors, and had spent all that she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, for she kept saying, "If only I touch his clothes, I will be healed." At once the bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Jesus knew at once that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" His disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing against you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" But he looked around to see who had done it. Then the woman, with fear and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." While he was still speaking, people came from the synagogue ruler's house, saying, "Your daughter has died. Why trouble the teacher any longer?" But Jesus, paying no attention to what was said, told the synagogue ruler, "Do not be afraid, just believe." He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the synagogue ruler, where he saw noisy confusion and people weeping and wailing loudly. When he entered, he said to them, "Why are you distressed and weeping? The child is not dead, but asleep." And they began making fun of him. But he put them all outside, and he took the child's father and mother and his own companions and went into the room where the child was. Then, gently taking the child by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." The girl got up at once and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. They were completely astonished at this. He strictly ordered that no one should know about this, and told them to give her something to eat. Sticks out in my mind that as opposed to the demoniac that we saw yesterday, who he told to spread the word of what God had done for him, to the Decapolis. On the contrary, this little girl who he brought back to life, he tells the family that they shouldn't let anybody know about this, and certainly God has his plan, and it caused the news of his fame in Jerusalem eventually spread so much that, and caused the religious leaders to get so jealous that it eventually ended up in his crucifixion, which, I mean, had to happen, but I think he was trying to slow the progression of that and try to get the word out as much as possible. So, before that point. Psalm 38, verses 1 through 22. O Lord, do not continue to rebuke me in your anger. Do not continue to punish me in your raging fury. For your arrows pierce me, and your hand presses me down. My whole body is sick because of your judgment. I am deprived of health because of my sin. For my sins overwhelm me, like a heavy load. They are too much for me to bear. My wounds are infected and starting to smell because of my foolish sins. I am dazed and completely humiliated. All day long I walk around mourning, for I am overcome with shame, and my whole body is sick. I am numb with pain and severely battered. I groan loudly because of the anxiety I feel. O Lord, you understand my heart's desire. My groaning is not hidden from you. My heart beats quickly. My strength leaves me. I can hardly see. Because of my condition, even my friends and my acquaintances keep their distance. My neighbors stand far away. Those who seek my life try to entrap me. Those who want to harm me speak destructive words. All day long they say deceitful things. But I am like a deaf man, I hear nothing. I am like a mute who cannot speak. I am like a man who cannot hear, and is incapable of arguing his defense. Yet I wait for you, O Lord. You will respond, O Lord my God. I have prayed for deliverance, because otherwise they will gloat over me. When my foot slips, they will arrogantly taunt me, for I am about to stumble, and I am in constant pain. Yes, I confess my wrongdoing, and I am concerned about my sins. But those who are my enemies for no reason are numerous. Those who hate me without cause outnumber me. They repay me evil for the good I have done. Though I have tried to do good to them, they hurl accusations at me. Do not abandon me, O Lord. My God, do not remain far away from me. Hurry and help me, O Lord, my deliverer. Prayer of a suffering penitent. Sounds a lot like Job. Proverbs chapter 10, verses 8 and 9. The wise person accepts instructions, but the one who speaks foolishness will come to ruin. The one who conducts himself in integrity will live securely, but the one who behaves perversely will be found out. So don't behave perversely. Okay, well, thank you for joining me again today. Again, I appreciate it. Bye.